My name is Joe Saul. I'm an adoptee, a psychotherapist, and the author of Adoption Healing: A Path to Recovery.
Someone anonymous said, "When your mother dies, the lights go out." President Eisenhower said, "There is no tragedy in life like the death of a child. Things never get back to the way they were." How do we deal with finding a grave at the end of a search? Remember that you've already experienced the psychological death of your other when you lost her. When you find a grave at the end of your search, or your other passes away after a reunion, the initial loss, the initial trauma of separation of mother and child surfaces, and one experiences this new loss as another severe trauma. For the sake of clarity, I refer to all children of adoption loss as feminine. Two of the worst losses in the world are the death of a mother or the death of a child. When someone suffers one of these losses, their grief is understood by others, sanctioned by society, and they receive comfort and solace from others. However, our losses are not recognized by society as a whole, and the loss of our other needs to be grieved. Not an easy thing to do under any circumstances. You've already experienced this death when you lost that person the first time, but what happens when you experience this death again? No other human beings have to experience the death of the same loved one more than once. We have to do it at least 3 times, in the beginning at the time of fracture, and when we do our grief work, and that is more than enough for any one person to have to experience. What happens when we find a grave at the end of our search, or we have a reunion and our loved one dies? What happens when we experience this death a 4th time? When one finds a grave at the end of her search, you are hit in the face with this horrible knowledge, which means feeling the horrible pain of losing her again, another trauma. The trauma of your initial loss rises up, and you have to face not only the pain of the death of your mother or child, but the pain of knowing you will never have a reunion. She will never be real to you, and you will never get to see or hold or hear or be held by your very own mother, your very own child. Never know what her life was like. And to top it off, you have to accept that it's over. Your search is complete. Your hopes and dreams are shattered. Your trauma is magnified beyond anything most people ever have to endure. Your friends and family may not understand. They may pooh-pooh it and say, "What are you crying about? You didn't even know her." Well, you sure did know her. You had a relationship with her in the womb at the very least, and she's been in your heart ever since, her absence filling your world. Remember that even if you're unaware of it, babies and mothers love each other before, during, and after birth. That's how babies come into the world, loving and being loved by their mothers. I suggest that you write a letter to your mother or child as part of your grief work. If at all possible, a trip to the grave would be important. Bring your letter to the grave site and place it in the ground to be with her forever. When there is a grave after you've met, you are hit in the face with the horrible pain of losing her again, another trauma. The trauma of your initial loss rises up, and you have to face not only the pain of the death of your child now, but the pain of the death of your mother or child the first time. But the pain also of knowing it's over. Your child is dead or your mother is dead, everyone's worst nightmare. You will never see her again, never get to hold or hear her again. Your trauma is magnified beyond anything most people ever have to endure. Your friends and family may not understand. They may pooh-pooh it and say, "What are you crying about? What's the big deal? She wasn't really your child, or she wasn't really your mother." Well, she was. There is no such thing as an ex-child or an ex-mother. You had a relationship with her, and she's been in your heart all your life, her absence filling your world until reunion, and now she's gone. Again, you have a right to grieve. Be patient with yourself. Give extra time to your committee of inner children. They will need extra time to grieve as well. If at all possible, go to the funeral service and go to the cemetery. This will be a very important part of your grieving, and unless you are physically stopped, be there. She is your child or your mother. The rituals at funeral services and graveside are designed to promote grieving. Also, I suggest you write a letter to her as part of your grieving work. Bring your letter to the gravesite and place it in the ground to stay with her forever. No matter what is said, no matter how little comfort we get from others, we need to be aware that the grieving needs to be done on another level. Careful attention and respect must be given to this additional trauma. We need to be patient with ourselves, knowing that our grieving process will be longer. More inner child work will be called for, and more journaling too. Most of all, we need to be kind to ourselves and nurture and give comfort to our inner children. Hug your inner child and let her cry with you comforting her as often as she needs to. We need to remember that grieving is a process. It takes time. We need to be patient and trust the process. To summarize, losing our loved ones at the beginning was painful enough. Finding a grave or having them die after reunion is, in fact, losing them again, and grieving is an absolute must. Make a grieving list, and as painful as it is to do, it will help you process your loss. Grieving takes time. Be patient with yourself. You will need to cry until you don't need to anymore. You may be calm for a while, and then have the free-floating sadness, and then calm again. Your cycle will flatten out as long as you take care of your inner child and let her cry, with you holding her and comforting her as often as she needs to. Remember that all of these losses are very, very large traumas and need to be respected. I am truly sorry for your loss.